Yeah, I would like you to welcome to the following talk. And we had this before, so we had the discussion. There was a question whether to develop against RCP or against web. And we heard it before, software is eating the world. Some would say web is eating the world. Yeah, my topic is to show you a lot of us develop RCP software. And the question is, yeah, how can we combine it with the web? Because everybody's doing the web. It was before mainframe, then it was desktop, then it's web, then it's desktop. It goes back and forth, but we have to find solutions how to do both. And that's what I'm going to show you today. When we start a project, and I think most of you have already started a project or will start a project in the future, we have to make a decision. Is it desktop, where we like to develop an application, as we see on the left side, or is it web, see on the right side, an application? And desktop and web, they have different paradigms how to use the software and how to present the data and how interactive they are. So we just can't say, yeah, I don't know what to do, I start anyhow. You have to make a decision, desktop or web. There's no other choice. And the next slide, maybe we can go through it very fast because most of you know the advantages which desktop application has. So we can analyze complex data sets. We have a good interactivity, and especially when it comes to analyzing big data sets. So for example, in my area with chemistry, analytical chemistry, we have data sets. 5 megabyte is okay. 100 megabyte, also fine, but we have data sets where one measurement has 15 gigabytes. Yeah, upload such data to the web takes you a night. And so the desktop application has a lot of advantages. But sure, we have also disadvantages because you have to ship the software, you have to build the software, you have to deploy the software. There's oomph. When I'm going back to my office, I try oomph and try to do all the stuff, but there's endless to deploy to Windows users. So as you see, we have pros and cons in the software. There's web. I say web as HTML, JavaScript, CSS. So basically, we have, it's very easy for users to start with a web application, and we have a good scalability because when you have a web farm, you can put in 10 more servers, or you use Amazon Web Services or Google servers to scale up your system. Very great, so no doubt. But what we, and the other point, we have no deployment. So just go to the web browser, type in the URL, and use the software. But the problem is, as I told before, when it comes to big data sets, we really have a problem. So you can't upload 12 gigabytes of data to the server. So yeah, your provider would kill you, and yeah, you can't do your analysis in the meantime. 3D visualization was bad in former days, so it has, when we have a look at D3.js or so on, it's very good, but the desktop application still has a lot of advantages when it comes to visualization of data. And as I said, analyzing complex data sets is a bit difficult. So you have to make the decision, and you can ask friends, you can ask other people. Let's have a look. Maybe we ask some famous people. Yeah, that's Steve. He's not among us any longer, so rest in peace, Steve. Sorry for that. But he would have said, yeah, make an app. And then we see on the other side Bill Gates. He say, sure, make a desktop application for Windows. Sure, he would say this. We have Larry Ellison. He would say, we need a thin client, so make a web application which communicates to the server. And then we have Mark, just saying +1. And we have the boatman, and he, okay, let's skip this. So actually, you don't know what to do. You have to make the decision. And finally, when we have a look on the Eclipse RCP applications, it's a mature technology. We rely on this, it's great, it offers really great capabilities. So we decide, okay, let's make an RCP application. And I don't know how many of you have an RCP application in some kind. Oh, very good, nice to see you. Nice to see that a lot of people, and sure, we are on EclipseCon now, a lot of people develop RCP applications. And then we have, maybe after a while, after some years of hard development, of successful deployment, of happy customers, and of a good product, we have nowadays, and then this happens. It's me. I tell you, make a web version. That's you. Seriously, we have a problem. Again, you thought, okay, I did everything correctly, but again, you have to make a decision. And there are several ways to handle with this situation. So as you see, point number one would be leaving the company, sure. You will face this situation also in other companies, let me tell you. And then the second opportunity would be to make a fake web version where your boss do not know that you can't do it. And so, but okay, let's go to the next point. You can say, no, I don't want to do it at all. Go to point number one again. But then it's not your own decision to leave the company, sure. We can also apply without a solution and say, yes, we do it, but really doing nothing. Again, point number one. Or you can say, let's start rewriting the application and doing new stuff, and so from ground on, and yeah. It's too expensive in most cases. So we have no other choice. We need a choice to handle it, or a solution to handle with it. And so you read a lot of papers, you have a look at a lot of blogs in the web, and then you say, okay, what's about Eclipse Wrap? Great technology, so it's also from Eclipse side. Or what about Vadin? Or what about Broadway Daemon? GTK3 is a bit, as we thought, it's not the best supported under SWT, but it could be a solution too. Or JavaFX and E4, as we heard today. So there are some opportunities we have. But I would like to tell you, I don't think it's a good idea to migrate a desktop application one-to-one to a web application, because there are different paradigms how to use desktop and web, as you know. And so I don't like, or would not be familiar with the idea to say, okay, just put the desktop one-to-one to the web and then still use it. It is a possibility, but really I don't like it. So what can we do? Let's go one step back. So let's think about OCI. So in an RCP application, sure, we are using OCI bundles. And hey, when we use OCI bundles, can't we just make that we say we use our OCI bundles, then put SWT upon it, and there we have our Eclipse RCP application. That's what we are doing at the moment. But when we separate the OCI bundles, can't we just combine the OCI bundles with some kind of web stuff and deploy that to Virgo? Virgo is another project at the Eclipse Foundation. It's a kind of OCI application server. And yeah, that could be a solution to do it in that way. So let's combine these things. And I thought by myself, yeah, maybe we can do it. I gathered all OCI bundles of my Eclipse RCP application, started Virgo, put them in there, and so on, and then crash. Oh no, that's, I'd like to show you this crash slide, but but I think you got it. What I'd like to show you here, we have our application source code, SWT RCP application, source code, HTML, JavaScript, CSS, web version. So, okay, separated, everything deployed to Virgo, and then what you see, crash. So I was not able to start Virgo, and I had a look at the log files and everything, and he said, yeah, I can't resolve the bundles and all the stuff, and that's where OCI is really great for, because we can see what happens, but it's sometimes hard to see where it happens. And so I had a look and saw, okay, some dependencies can't be resolved. And finally I got it. It was about SWT JFace. And I thought about, hey, I don't have SWT and JFace dependency in my bundles, so they must come from somewhere. And a further look showed me that they come from preferences. And I will go into detail in the further slides, but what was there? So what we have to do before, we have to think of, okay, let's separate the models of our application and the SWT parts. And so I designed my application from beginning on that I separated model and the UI parts, but the dependencies or the preferences are still a problem, because what we do in Eclipse, when we instantiate the dependency or the preference page, that we have to ask the activator to get the preferences, and that happens in the UI part. So there is the SWT or JFace dependency hardly coded in the OCI bundle. So we need a way to get rid of this. And I had a look at the classes and interfaces which are involved in all these processes. And there we see we have the iPreference store. It comes from JFace. It's a UI part. Field editor preference page. It's also JFace UI. The scope preference store. Eclipse UI, UI part, the abstract UI plugin, that's in the name, sure, it's a UI. But we have also other classes, the Eclipse preferences, the scope context, the instance scope, and the abstract preference initializer, which come from the model, which come from Org Eclipse core. And I had a look at them and thought about, okay, when they come from the model, maybe we can we can put the preferences from the UI part to the model part, and then reference back from the model part to the UI part. And how I did this, I would like to show you in the next slides. Before I show you slides, it's very important, if you go along with this approach, that you separate your bundles into model, what you see here, demo. There's where all your business logic is placed, and into your UI bundles is this one, demo RCP UI and demo web UI. So we have a clear separation, and that's very, very important to do this. And now let's have a look at the first part of the UI, of the preference page. What we do in the preferences, we say set preference store, the UI activator, get the default, get the preference store, and set it into my preferences. We need to get rid of this. So we go to the abstract UI plugin initializator or activator, and there we can override the get preference store method by our own method and create an own scope or instance scope. And that's what we do here. We say qualifier. We now have our demo bundle. It's the model bundle, and get the preference store from there and put it into the put it into our UI preference page. And the next step is that we have to define default values in our model bundle. So we extend the class from abstract preference initializer, because we want to initialize our preferences in the model bundle and not in the UI bundle. And we can do it this way. So that we define our values, for example, Boolean and true, or something what we like to have in there, put them in the default values map. And as all of you know, is what we have in the plugin XML file, that we can initialize all those preferences with this plugin XML definition. So what the plugin XML definition is doing, he tries to initialize the values. Effectively, is it just goes through the map we've created and put the values we defined into the initialized map. Don't forget to flush the preferences at the end of the operation. And That's what you see here. We have our preferences in the model bundle, and we have our XML snippet in the plugin XML in the model bundle, which now initializes our preferences. The next step is going back to the UI part. So model and UI part are separated from another, but we want to use these preferences also in the preference page we know from the UI. So we have to do the same in the UI package, but there we can just get the default preferences and initialize them in the UI path as soon as it is needed. And that works quite fine. So the question is, this was one part of these preparations we have to do to run our RCP application in the web, is what's next? Which next steps are needed? And I would show you, this is a short a screenshot. As you see nothing. It's a bit too big, but effectively it's what we have in here. That we create our web bundle called demo, or our OCI bundle called demo web UI. And you know the source part, everything's fine. You are familiar with the manifest MF, it's also fine. We have the POM XML file for our CBI, that's also fine. But what we add there is there are different folders we add. We add a folder CSS, we add a folder for fonts, for font awesome, so for example. We have a JavaScript folder, we have a webint folder where we define our servlets we will use, and we have our index HTML, and the index HTML is our entry point into the application. Let's have a look at the details. So how can we connect these OCI bundle, the web bundle, with our Java model code we have in our application? So what we want to do, we want to reuse as much of our application as possible. So don't implement functionality in the UI. Implement functionality and implement business logic in the models. And then we can use GET and POST request to have access to exactly this business logic we already have implemented. It means we reuse existing models. We can use the preferences because we defined our preferences in the model and not in the UI. And what we have, or the benefit of having a web version, is that we can implement an enhanced workflow. So web is much more easy to use than a desktop application. And most of you know how HTML forms, so I think this is very important. We call import and do a post method, and then this method is triggered. I will show also a demo of this. And or we have jQuery, AngularJS, really good suited for this purpose, because there we have a dynamic interchange between our web UI and our application. So we just can say, go to the servlet that listens to list and say load the files I already entered into my application. I think the rest, if you know jQuery and AngularJS, you will know how it works. And one thing we have to modify, or two things we have to modify, is the manifest MF. Then we say the web context path is /, so we listen to localhost. And we have to define in the web XML our servlets. So the servlets are the gateway between the web UI and our model. And there we see the list, as I showed before, has a list servlet and is initialized through the web XML. So what do we have to do? We have to prepare Virgo. We have to remove the pickup, some pickup apps. So there are some demo apps in Virgo available. We use a feature in our application to define which features of our RCP model application we use in our web version. It's very easy for us because we stay in one environment, so we don't have to do separate web development. We stay in the Eclipse IDE to develop both RCP and web. And we use an update side. It's quite handy because then Tycho is compiling for us all the plugins we need, or Tycho is compiling all the plugins, which we then copy into the Virgo workspace. And this is copied from the target into the repository ext directory. And we have to copy a plan. It's a Chrome ident plan for this example. It tells Virgo, okay, please start this OCI bundle, and then all the other OCI bundles started afterwards. Yeah, how does it look like? And I think, or I would like to give you a short introduction. First, I give you an introduction how the RCP application looks like. Afterwards, I show you how the web version looks like. And that's what I want to do now. So I've prepared my chemical application. What we see in here is this Open Chrome. We see a lot of samples. These are different wood types from Africa. And our job is to analyze those samples and say, okay, where can I tell apart the samples and can I identify certain kind of woods? Because what we do is try to prevent illegal logging in this area, so it's a big threat to the forest. And a lot of chemistry is used in this area, so it's quite fine. But as you see, okay, we have a bunch of icons here on the top, and it feels like a jumbo jet cockpit and so on. You really have to know what you're doing there. So when you're used to do it, then you see a mass spectrum and can see, okay, that's a substance, and we can overlay the data sets. Where is it? Let's go here. Chromogram overlay, we see where they are different or the same. And we can go to the chromogram, and we can do also some kind of things. So I have to search for the button. Where is it? No, that's here's it. Yeah. Chromadent. Please identify the chromogram. Now he is evaluating peaks, going through all the peaks, and we get some results here. So it could be Obeche or Obobo and so on. So this is how it looks like within RCP application. And can we do the same in the web? And I would say, as I told you before, yes, but not in the same way. It's a bit different. And we prepared our build and everything is fine. And now I will start up Eclipse Virgo. And what you see here, he's unpacking the Eclipse Virgo release. He is copying some files in there. As I told you, I did not a complete Tycho build because to build Open Chrome, the desktop and the web version takes around about 2.5 hours. So we have quite a big application. But it's quite handy because what we can do there is building the application with Tycho in one run. So we don't have to exchange some SWT libraries to some other library set and UI set and so on. We can stay in our environment. And so we're starting up, what you see here, multi-artifact plan and so on. Now everything is copied in there. And now he started the plan that we just pushed to Virgo. And what we can do now is go to the web and type in localhost 8080. There we are. This is our web version. Much more simpler, not so much icons. Keep it simple as possible. We use Bootstrap to have a responsive design. We have Angular, JS, imprint. You can close it. I'll make it big. And what we do now, what we have done before, we analyze the file. We can do the same now here. Just select the file and go to my documents and select the word. Say import. And what is he doing now? He imports the file, and he is doing all the steps I did before in the RCP application, but with the benefit, the user don't have to know where he has to click. He just have to upload a file, and everything is done in the background. And that's what I told before. Web has a benefit. It's very easy. But sure, you can't do the same in the web as you do in the RCP application. Much more simpler, we see the list shows us one chromogram is imported. And now we go to the results page and see, okay, we have a kind of results, and this could be Obeche or Bogo, and we can close it, or we can go back to import and upload another file. So for unexperienced users, this is much more intuitive than using the cockpit version of the desktop. But for scientists, the desktop application is much more interesting because they can do everything they want to do. And as we heard in the talk before, scientists want to go into the data files and they want to pick out some data, they want to play with it, they want to tinker with it. And with this approach, I showed you, we can go back to the Chroma there, let's say reload the data sets, and now have a look at the second file, is that we have, we give the user both ways to do the analysis. And I think that's very beneficial. But when we go back to the presentation, there are some drawbacks. I faced some problems which I have not solved yet, but I think we can solve these problems. This is the Equinox extension points. So somehow, what we do in OpenChrome is we have a lot of extension points, for example, for file import converters, for peak detection, everything. He's not recognizing these extension points. He runs, there are no errors in Virgo, but the extension points are not usable. But it's not bad because I want to replace them by OCI declarative services. And so hopefully with the declarative services, it will run again, that the platform dynamically decides which file to load and everything so that it not needs to be hard-coded in the application. The other point is singletons. Sure, singletons have a bad flavor somehow, and we should not use them. Sometimes it's inevitable, but we try to, or should get rid of them as soon as possible. So the only way to do this is refactoring. And the next thing is sessions. Sure, web has another approach. We have sessions there if multiple users will use the application and all the stuff and maybe modify the settings and so on. That's a point we have to handle. But as we also heard today, great talks we had about the Docker support and the Docker support we have already in Eclipse. So we can maybe use Docker images for each user so that each user is directed to his own Docker container. So then we also get rid of the sessions and so on. Sure, the application needs to be thread safe. So that's another point, but these are problems which are solvable. And I think we can do it. The benefit I see in this, it's from my point of perspective, it's true single sourcing because we don't have to exchange UI libraries. We can stay in our environment, which we know. We build both RCP and the web application. And I had also listened to the great talk of Peter Kriens with nroot, where AngularJS and all the things are already bundled within the nroot. So as I saw, and this could be also a way to bundle it and to stay in the context we are. So we don't have to leave our IDE. We don't have to change the target platform. We use the target platform we've defined for our RCP application and just deploy the Virgo. And what we then use, complex workflows are done by the desktop application. Simple workflows or more sophisticated workflows are done in the web version. So yeah, I would say this is true single sourcing. And yeah, I think we are good in time, so I'm at the end of the presentation. Are there questions? Yeah.
So I was wondering, this is basically, so to say, a small application. Okay, what would happen in the case where you have like either
I show you my workspace, and I don't think that you say that we are a small application.
Seems so. Sorry for it.
So, no, you're welcome. So, this is my workspace we're working on. So,
Yeah, but those are a lot from Eclipse, from what I can see, and things like that.
yeah, we are part of. We have migrated our application to CamClips to the foundation. So we are reusing CamClips part. We have our own parts upon it, Chrome, because we have, as a company, a trademark on it. But we try to bring as much open source as possible to the Eclipse Foundation, to the science working group. But all in all, we have around about, I don't know exactly the number, I think 95 Git repositories with a lot of plugins and things we use in our workspace. And additionally, we have a big updates target platform where we reuse a lot of other plugins. So it works for big applications too. And this is proof of concept.
How much did it actually take in order to try and transfer it to web?
It's fairly simple. So the only thing we have, or as I can go back to the slides, the problems I've mentioned. So what we have in the application is extension points. So we have, for example, file import converters. So each system vendor stores the analytical data in a binary file. And we have an extension point to say, plugins, please say whether you are able to read a certain kind of file or not. And there we have 30 different import converters, and we have filters and everything. That is realized by using extension points. If it works to use OCI declarative services, you can then use these declarative services in the web application too, because you only have the UI, the web UI, which talks to your background application. And sure, you have to define in the web application some UIs that you say, let's go back to the web interface. Sure, you have to design this and maybe make your workflows much more simpler than in the RCP application. So say, please upload the data, and then your bundles do everything automatically and present a result. So sure, that's the work you have to do. But I think that's also beneficial for customers, because a lot of our customers, they don't want to go into the details. They just want to say, hey, I have a record here. I just want quickly know, is it my sample or is it not my sample? Is a certain substance mixed in my sample or not? And that's what you can do with a web application. Sure, there are other libraries like D3.js or so, where you have graphs and interactive and everything. It's fine, but that's what I told in the beginning. I don't want to bring a desktop application one-to-one to the web, because I think they have different paradigms. So yeah, that's the work you have to do, but effectively you reuse your business logic as you use in the RCP application. Yeah.
So how much do you guys make use of the resources plugin?
The I must have a look at it. So I do not know exactly.
So things like iFile, iProject,
Yeah.
iWorkspace.
Sure, we have workspaces, and so what we see here, maybe in the desktop application. Let's go back. Well, what we see here is that we have a known project explorer which marks the files which are readable. So, for example, from different vendors, HLand and so on. And we also have a project explorer. It's nothing in here, which we can use for batch processes and everything. So, but that's again the case. So the user can do with the RCP application much more than in the web version. But that's intentionally, because the web version shall be much more simpler than the other things. So, yeah.
So the reason I ask is because when we just migrated ICE from well, we were using the resources plugin, and we had to migrate away from declarative services for some of the services, because
Okay.
So what you have to do in that case, and I'll show you the code later if you want. What you have to do in that case is actually go back to activators.
Yeah.
It's not so bad because, you know, it's not all the DS goodness.
Yeah. Okay. I had no problem yet with the web version, but maybe if I come to this, so I can talk to you again. So
Yeah.
I think there will be also some other problems occur in the next round, but yeah. So, but this one, luckily, I haven't had. Yeah. So are there further questions? Okay. Then. Okay, there's imprint, and that's there in Germany, and again, yeah, please evaluate the sessions, and yeah, I would like to thank you for listening to my talk, and if you have further questions, please come to me. I have a, okay, those both, they don't know now, but I have a goodie for everyone, as there's this pen with a lovely Open Chrome logo on it, so I have a box here with me, so if you'd like to have one, get one at the front. Thanks for listening.